Hello and welcome back to the Student Pages podcast. I'm your host, Grace Sanders, and we are very excited to bring you a very special series on DJing, sponsored by Alpha Theatre, a market leader in design and production of innovative DJ equipment and software, and Pioneer DJ's sister brand. Today, we're going to be taking a peek behind the showbiz curtain with Sam Shepherd. Hello, Sam. How are you doing today?
Hello, Grace. You all right?
I'm doing very well, thank you. It's not often that we take a little bit of a look behind the inner workings of music and showbiz and stardom and everything on the stage. So it's going to be really interesting to speak to you today.
Good. No, I'm looking forward to it.
Cracking. Now, you are a product planner and design engineer. Please correct me if I've got that wrong, because all of these words are a complete mystery to me. And we know about singers and actors, but can you tell me a little bit more about what your job actually involves on the decks?
My role is a European product planning executive. So I work in a very small team and we work alongside the team that look after the Americas. And then we look at the team over in Japan. And then between three teams, we do all the data research, we come up with product ideas, and we basically take a product from an initial meeting and a conversation of shall we do this, all the way through to the product actually being out on the shelves and being sold.
Mhm,
And what that can entail is market research, design elements, features, a lot of back and forths, a lot of very friendly but constructive arguments because not all teams agree.
mhm.
Obviously, we Europe is a different market. And then yeah, when we finally manage to agree with everything, we will then put the product into development, and then we'll get sample units and then further sample units up until we have got it right basically, and then it gets handed over to a different department, and we start all over again.
Now, see, this sounds a lot to me like group projects at university, which used to absolutely terrify me. So, what do you enjoy about this process?
But a really good part, there's two parts I say. What a really good part is when I'm out and about and I visit a DJ store, and the products that you and the team have worked on is literally there in the store and people are using it. That's a really good feeling. And I guess the other one is definitely the travel that it entails. There's a lot of travel, all over Europe, because when we're developing a product, we speak to DJs, we speak to artists, get their opinions. I think they're the two of the main things that I love the most.
I think we naturally flip flop between positive and negative, but you've spoken a lot about the travel there and obviously interacting with people that utilize the products. Can you give us a bit of an overview of what those products actually are?
Do you mean the ones that I've worked on?
Hmm.
So obviously I can't disclose what I am working on. I've been in product planning now for 2.5 years. Prior to that, I was in business development and then sales as well. And so in the last 2.5 years, the ones that have come out, I worked on the Omnis Duo, which is the battery powered all-in-one. I worked a little bit on the Euphonia, which is our new rotary mixer, and the DDJ Groove 6. That was one of my projects as well. When there's a project that isn't necessarily as substantial as, say, the next CDJ or the next big mixer, if it's something like a little bit smaller, like a controller, you tend to be a little bit more solo on that project. Whereas if it's something more substantial, there's a team involved. So I've been involved in a lot of team related products, but I think the Groove 6 was one that stands out, that I was there from start to finish. I mean, the development of a product, it can take between 18 months to 3 years from starting to then it being sold. So there's a lot of things that I'm working on currently, which are set to come out in the future. But because I've been in product planning, I've worked with the guys for nearly 8 years. But because I've been a product planner now for 2.5 years, there's only probably three products I've worked on that have only come out in that space of time. But the
Hmm.
time it takes for the product to be developed is quite a long time. So if you ask me this in 2 years' time, I'll be able to give you. There's a lot I'm working on. I also did a lot of work on Recordbox 7, the software. That was a fun job. That was really good. Yeah.
I'm under no illusion that it takes a lot of work for what I'm going to lovingly call gadgets and gizmos because you've said a lot of futuristic words at me. And I've been lucky enough to be in a DJ booth a couple of times over what I think is just the control deck to the Starlight ship from Star Trek or something like that. I've probably also got that word wrong.
That was a good analogy. That was a great reference.
So you mentioned that you go out, you start with these nebulous concepts, and then you go out and you see how people are actually interacting with these products before they go onto the market. I'm assuming you travel to Berlin a lot, or maybe is that stereotypical?
Yeah, but Berlin's one of them. Obviously, Ibiza's quite a hot spot. There's loads of areas. I was lucky enough to go to Oslo as well a couple of years ago. That was it was cold, but that was amazing. That one. It depends, we have a set amount of our sort of go-to festivals. So things like Kappa in Italy, obviously a lot in Ibiza, Creamfields in the UK, Sonar in Spain. There's loads. We basically tap into those festivals because the DJs that we have our eye on, that we're trying to utilize a festival when we know all of them are going to be there, and that's kind of how it works. I mean, to be honest with you, the travel can just come out of nowhere. I did Milan. That was a great one, but I got told 4 days before, and it was you have to go and present a product, and so it can just come out of nowhere. It can be anywhere, but I mean, the main spots essentially are Spain, Italy, Croatia, that kind of thing. That's the main spots. But then because the UK has such a foothold in the industry, London is such a key spot to be able to meet the artists, and you do have to kind of go off their schedule.
Mhm.
But if we can't capture in there, then yeah, we'll venture out.
Have you ever had to deal with any divas when they're working with new products? You don't have to name names.
I'm not going to name names. Yeah, that I'll be honest with you, it comes with the job. It's part and parcel. I mean, to be honest with you, before product planning, when I was a business developer, and even my time, I've been DJing 20 years now. I don't do much of it anymore. But even back then, when I was promoting and things like that, you always come across egos. What I tend to find though is the higher up as a DJ you get, like when I'm not going to name drop, but when we're working with sort of like your world renowned guys, that tends to be when there isn't an ego. It's
Mhm.
usually the guys that are breaking through that you tend to have a bit of fun
Yeah.
with, but at the end of the day, in order to work in product planning, you do have to have a level of experience of being in the industry. So you essentially you should have already come across artists and DJs that may be a little bit more difficult, and you do tend to work out best ways to go around it. So that there's no point in going on crying about it. It just it's part of the job. You have to deal with that. I'm sure maybe at one point somebody thought I was an egotistic. I won't say it, but it, it's part of the industry sometimes. Yeah, but like I said, the higher up the DJ we make, the easier it is.
Now, it's obviously, I think DJing has got so much more popular within the past couple of years, and we can go on and talk about how the economy relates to this and like the rise of house parties again. But how have you seen your job change because of that as well?
Massively. I'm going to start with that COVID period, and it was obviously as hard as it was for a lot of people. The rise in DJs around that time was just we didn't predict it, and we couldn't have predicted it. We just, I was a business developer back then, but because we've made DJing accessible, we were kind of the first to do it. We were the foothold of making DJing more accessible. Back when I first started, I was on vinyl back in the early noughties, and you're looking at £1,000, which is probably about £2,000 now, to even get a terrible setup, but it'll do. Nowadays, especially around the COVID period, because I remember the products that came out around then, you could order a DDJ 200 for, like, I think at the time it was £219, and the software
Mhm.
was free. So we made DJing extremely accessible to people. And where I've seen the big change is young DJs. Back when I was younger, I mean, I was 13 when I was maybe 12 when I took an interest in it. Obviously, I wasn't going to clubs at 12. I could barely get in clubs at 18. I baby face. But back then, it was unheard of for anybody younger than 18 to be into it. Whereas now, you've got kids that are like 4 or 5 years old that are doing it.
Mhm.
And I think we take that on board, obviously, when we're developing products, because we will develop products from different areas. We'll be developing the flagship all singing, all dancing festival, the top line, and then you will be put on a project that, and it's equally as fun. You'll be put on a project where you're developing the my first DJ controller. And
Fisher Price, baby's first decks.
but yeah, and we that's where my role has changed a lot. Not so much as well. The advancements in technology is just so, I mean, it's just rapid. And the whole streaming services, streaming music, that's changed. It's changed our industry completely, and we have to keep up with those things, and that is where the job is very interesting in that sense.
See, and now you've spoken a lot about accessibility and not just from an age perspective. As me and you both know, you can hear from our accents. What is it like getting into this industry as someone from the north? And I know that Manchester is a little bit more of a cultural hub than my little town in Yorkshire. But how do you find the battle between funding as well as just general areas of interest, maybe having to come down to London, maybe having to go to different spots because there isn't culture around you? How would you try and navigate that if you were younger today, a student?
Great question. The younger generation today have a much more saturated market, but it is a lot easier than when it was when I was that age because social media. It used to pain me to say this because I did come of the generation. I was at the back end of the original generation of DJs where, you'd spend years practicing your craft before you'd even got a gig. I think I was mixing on vinyl for 2 years before I'd even walked into a pub. And I have a lot of respect for that generation because it was tough because you never had any money. You were, whereas now to get in the and of course then we couldn't Facebook someone. We couldn't Instagram didn't exist. I think Facebook had just started. YouTube hadn't even started. So you were quite literally having to butter up or DJs in clubs, and you'd be that annoying. I was that annoying kid going, can I do the last half an hour? And that's what it was like in that generation. And it was extremely cutthroat as well. Whereas the generation now, even if you're from a smaller town without any nightlife, from the style of DJing you want to do, it's just so much more accessible. All you have to do essentially is just get online, get on social media, post yourself, video yourself, but post your journey. Don't think you have to be incredibly good to start your video. No, just start videoing because you'll then be able to see the progression through the videos. And this is what a lot of people do look for. So yeah, social media is if you're from an
Mhm.
area. And then of course, if you start getting noticed, and of course the old school classic way of writing off to promoters, email, keep in touch with them, one door will open, and there's no doubt about it. And then when you do get that opportunity, don't think of how am I going to get to that gig? How am I going to get to London? Just say yes and then work it out after. Just
Mhm.
just say yes and go for it. Don't ever moan about the hours. If you miss your train on the way home, don't moan about that. It's DJing is a lot easier these days, and it's a lot easier to get gigs than it was back then.
I guess it's all about building that experience as well. And then you've got those funny stories that you can have and relate
Oh
to
God,
people who are
God
similarly in the
Almighty!
industry.
I've got
Yeah.
too many, far too many. Some of which we can't talk over on the podcast.
I
It's,
bet.
it, and I was talking to I did a talk in my local town recently for a DJ. It's called the DJ Social there, and there was a lot of 15, 16 year olds. There's loads of them, and some of the questions I was being asked, it was like there was an initial worry before they'd even learned how to DJ. And one of the best piece of advice I gave them was, look, just enjoy it. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. Just enjoy the job, enjoy the highs, enjoy the lows, because there's going to be highs and there's going to be lows.
Now, you mentioned that you come from an engineering background and that you've obviously kind of been involved with the music. It's been your passion for a very long time. Now you're sitting not behind the decks, but behind the decks.
Mm.
What would you say to students who have maybe just turned 18, 19, first, second year of uni, didn't know they were into all this, got invited to a rave, got invited to a house party, and thought, right, actually, this is something that I'm interested in. The tech is something that I'm interested in. And I'm doing an English literature degree. I've not thought about that. What would you say about carving a route past this when you don't necessarily have a background in what you're wanting to go into?
This honestly, this is such a good question. I've been asked this before, and I'll cut it short, but I'll explain how I did it and what I'm qualified in. I always had an interest in music and DJing from a very, very young age. My parents thought there was something wrong with me because most kids at my age, I mean, I was playing football and all sorts, but I was actually quite smart about it. I knew what I wanted to do, which was this job, and I knew it at the age of 15, 16. But I also knew what it was going to take. And at the time, I actually didn't realize how many years it was going to take, but I knew what I had to do. But because there's only four in our department in the whole of Europe. It's very niche. You are in a position that you've had to earn to be there. It's not like a job you would see posted on Indeed or anything. Essentially, they find you. Knowing that and knowing that there's probably thousands of other people that would like to be in the industry full time, I also knew the risk. So I made sure I didn't put all my eggs in one basket. So I got a trade as an engineer. So I was a mechanical engineer. But whilst I was doing when I was qualified, I went back to uni to do sound engineering. And I lost my way. It was just, 1 minute I was studying a library, next minute I was in a lift shaft building a lift. That's literally what I used to do. And then the next minute I'm in a club DJing, and then the next minute I'm sound engineering for a band. That all will amount and lead to a position like this. So don't put all your eggs in one basket. Find other things. It doesn't have to necessarily have to be in the industry, because it can be hit and miss. I've worked with some of my friends are some of the most talented DJs, and I will confidently say they're more talented than me, but they never went anywhere with it. They just didn't get that chance, and that can happen. So my advice to anybody at the age of 18 now is if you're studying whatever law or whatever, stick at it, qualify, get that get that qualification under your belt, because you never know when you might need to fall back on that. The same way I fell back on mechanical engineering. And to be honest with you, occasionally, because I have kids and a house now, I still do a Saturday shift as an engineer. I still fall back on it now. And then if you want to carve away as a DJ and a producer, or whether you want to work in the business side of it or development side like me, work two work twice as hard, work two jobs. That is, whether they want to hear that or not, that is Bible. You've essentially you've got to pave two careers, because you don't know which one's going to pay off. You don't want to be caught up in your late 20s still just scraping by local gigs, because it's not a pleasant way to live. If I'm going on a bit now, but just to conclude that question, if you found yourself wanting to take this path but you're currently on another path, do both.
Mhm.
You're young, you're fit, you're enough. I was 35 on Wednesday, and my God, thinking
Happy
back,
birthday.
I could never do the work and the hours that I did in my 20s now. I could not do it. And that's whether I had a family or not. Do it while you're young. Just
Mhm.
go for it. Do as much as you can.
It's so nice to hear you bring that realism into it, because obviously a lot of the advice, quite rightfully, is always absolutely go for it, put yourself out there. You're going to hear a million no's before you hear yeses, but that yes is out there. Just keep grinding. But I do think, I don't know whether, once again, it's just the northern in me, having that fallback and hearing like, yes, it might not be now, it might be later, but carry on with these two things. Give yourself the opportunity, give yourself not essentially an out, but you are supporting yourself in that
Yeah.
instance. I do think
Yeah.
that's very important.
100%. And I know what you mean. I hear people give this advice, go for it, it'll happen. And if you work hard enough, doors will open, and then it will be up to you whether you walk through that door or not. I'm going to be brutally honest. Take my advice, always have something else, always. And if you can get that while you're young,
Mhm.
do it while you're young. I'm qualified in as a sound engineer, a mechanical engineer, and then obviously I've got my job. So I have and I could go back to DJing. I've got multiple routes I can take if things don't go right. Thankfully, I'm contracted, but if you're a DJ and producer, you speak to any of them, they'll say the same as me. Work can dry up very quickly. You
Mhm.
can be. I've had it before. I've had six residencies, and within a month, I lost them all. So what do you do then? Well, you've got to keep the bills on. You've got to motivation's still got to be there. You've got to eat.
Mhm.
Always have, especially for this industry, always have backup plans and different things you can do.
I suppose those skills from those different sort of avenues as well will lend itself and all merge eventually.
100%. I know what they're looking for as a product planner,
Mhm.
and a common misconception to people wanting to work in this department is you have to be as good as the world's best DJ. You have to be untouchable as a DJ, and that's not the case at all. There's so many different skill sets that I use from previous roles, previous positions that I use in my job now. Obviously, yeah, you won't get a look in unless you have a background in DJing. I mean, at the end of the day, you are, and I'm talking club level or wedding level or mobile DJ. You're developing the product, so you have to have an understanding and have to have experience and put yourself in the position of the DJ. And you're only going to be able to do that as if you have been a DJ. But there's so many different skill sets that I've picked up from the past, like even like just people skills, managing the pressure, the stress, managing the travel, the sales side of me, the business development side of me plays a massive part in my role. There's so many things that sort of like bottleneck into what we do in this department. And again, it just goes back to what I was saying then. That's why I highly advise anybody listening or watching this, just try and do as much as you can. Just, there was a point where I was saying yes to everything and then working out how I'm going to do it after. Richard Branson taught me that. Not me personally, but I did read it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's the best advice I ever read. Just say yes to it all. There's parts in my job now where there's things that will pop up. Like a couple of years ago, we came out with an interface for lighting, which plugs into a DJ controller. I spent 6 months learning off a lighting job for free,
Mhm.
so I was able to dive straight into that, and I was like the go-to for the videos, and that then plays a role in going to product planning because they would look back and go, well, you did the Recordbox light, and then he did this, and he's like I'm not the full package. Jesus Christ, no, my boss
Yeah.
would say that. Multiple different skill sets
Mhm.
create a good product planner.
With all of these different skill sets, the people skills, the technical skills, you're going into an environment that is so closely associated with like partying, having a good time. Your work is directly related to that. How do you find keeping a level head in those situations and bringing the professionalism to that?
By making the mistake of not doing. I think no, it's the age-old question. Obviously, you're working in a nocturnal industry, sleep in the day, work at night, from being a DJ and stuff, and the travel plays a big part in it. Being away from your family can be tough sometimes. But I think through the many, many years of sacrificing weekends with the lads, weekends going out, got to make sure my wife ain't listening, many, many failed relationships because I just wasn't around. That played a big part in keeping grounded when I got to a position where, if I'm in a room and you're offered drink, but you're looking around and you can see who's in the room,
Mhm,
you just think it's just not worth it, you know.
mhm,
I think as well because I care a lot about my job and my career, and I've worked exceptionally hard to get here. It's just not worth ruining it, just for what one while. I don't get me wrong, like we enjoy ourselves, of course we do, but if you get offered an opportunity to work for Pioneer DJ or Alpha Theta, should I say, not many people do, and
mhm,
the company will carry you if you work at it. They will carry you through your whole career. So you'd be very, very stupid to make the mistake in not staying grounded. And I'm not saying I'm golden child because I have made mistakes in the past. Coming in work smelling of alcohol and things like that. You get your slap on the wrist, but I wouldn't want to jeopardize what I've built
mhm.
and what I have just for
Yeah.
what? just for a moment of fun. It's not worth it. So it can be quite easy to stay grounded. And I mean, don't get me wrong. I say that obviously when you first start getting, whether you're getting gigs and things like that, everything happens so fast. The ego does naturally kick in. It's natural, when you're around people and everybody's happy and you're in a club environment, and it is easy to just very quickly fall off the rails and lose sight of what you're trying to achieve. My advice is just remember why you got into it and what you want to achieve, because yeah, that outweighs that one wild night that you're being offered.
And it's clear from the way that you speak about your job, the close affinity you have with what you do, as well as just what it means to work at Alpha Theatre, that you're so enveloped in this idea that like there is a goal towards the end of this work too. So what would you say is like the central story or like the meaning behind Alpha Theatre as a community overall and what it brings to DJing?
Yeah, I've been asked that before. That is a good question. I think the best way to answer this is the best word I can think of is community. Definitely the best word, because I feel like even before we became Alpha Theta, Pioneer DJ, as a company, they've been the forefront and the market leaders since the early 90s. We're the first in a lot of things. And I think what I do like about the company is not so much, not just how much you are well looked after, like really good company to work for. But what I like about it is their passion and their support for the industry as a whole. I'm not just talking
Mhm.
staff members, I'm talking industry. You know, I don't think there's one person in this company that doesn't have in their mind, what can we bring to the industry? How can we innovate the industry? And I think that's why, well, I know that's why the recruitment stage of this company is bloody hard. I've done it and I've failed twice, and I managed to get it the third time. It is extremely difficult because you know, the company have a message. They want to support absolutely every corner, every area of this industry. We put as much hard work into a £200 beginner product as we do with the flagship big mixers. And that is God's honest truth. And I think that's why I'm resorting back to the word community, because we individually, we also want to see your 10-year-old DJ thrive. We
Mhm.
also we want to support the 50-year-old guy that has supported us for a long time. And I think I think it's one of the main reasons why I do like working for this company. It's not just a company, you're not just a number at all. That
Mhm.
you're very well looked after. You are very well looked after, and it's the passion. Even like the marketing team, the back staff, the BDEs, the sales, every single one of us just has a passion for DJing, and I think that speaks volumes in the company itself.
I think that's such a lovely note to end on, but I do want to ask you before you go just three quick questions.
Go on.
Favorite DJ or favorite gig, if you don't want to get too personal. Favorite festival event you've been to. Favorite location, whether that be a festival, whether that be a grimy little rave studio,
Where else?
and then favorite bit of kit.
The first one, I can't boil down a favorite DJ.
Mhm.
It's like asking somebody what's your favorite film. But I was there. Deck Mantle Boiler Room 2018 Palms Tracks. YouTube it. He
Mhm.
is one of my favorite DJs. Good guy. I know him more as a friend now. I was there. It was one of the best boiler rooms I've ever seen, but it was the best set I've ever seen. And that wasn't down to being drunk and the sun out. It was incredible. It was the mixture of 80s, the mixture of acid house. It was just, he took you on a journey. That I would say was for the first question. What was the second question again?
Favorite location, whether that be a festival or just a
Manchester,
venue.
all day Manchester.
Any
And I'm
venue in
not, I'm
Manchester
not just
specifically?
saying it, just Manchester. You ain't beating us. No way. We created Oasis, the Roses, Happy Mondays, Hacienda. We've got such a rich history. I hope my boss does listen to this because he's not going to like this part. We've got such a rich history in music, and I just love my city. It's as simple as that. And I think, for me personally, back in the days when I was DJing Sankeys, I've got so many good memories. And now, obviously, the Warehouse project is huge. I work with those guys, yeah, Manchester all day, all day. I didn't even have to think about that one. For those DJs out there watching this, you'll know what I mean. The DJM V10 mixer, the best mixer, and I've played on a lot of mixers. I call it my baby because I now do a lot of teaching of incorporating live production and DJing. So I teach that a lot. That V10, I'd sleep with it in bed next to me. I would. I don't think the wife would be happy, but it's just something about that mixer. Absolutely love it. Very difficult question to ask prior to that mixer being released.
That's a new one. That's a gold star.
Oh God, yeah. Yeah. And to be honest with you, I'll be surprised if we beat that in the future. I think we should have retired after that mixer. That's it, done. Guys.
Well, we'll see what's coming next for yourself and Alpha Theta very shortly. Thank you ever so much for taking the time to speak to me today, Sam. It's been an absolute joy to speak with you. And let me know if you've got any more of them boiler room tickets going.
Yeah, yeah. Seriously though, for those listening, Deck Mantle 2018 Boiler Room Palms Tracks. You can thank me later.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you. See ya.